So he tells a story. And he replied, a certain man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he fell among robbers. And they stripped him, and they beat him, and they went off, leaving him half dead. Now, this is totally geographically accurate, because if you're in Jerusalem and you're heading down in one direction, you're going to head down to Jericho. And wherever you go from Jerusalem, you're always going down, because Jerusalem is on the mountains, is up. So he's going down towards the Dead Sea. Now, it's heading to the desert place. That's where Jericho is. It's on the way to the Dead Sea. And there was a famous road called the Jericho Road, 8 miles long. It goes into deep hollows around rocks. It is desolate in the desert, deserted. So it was notorious back then as a place where robbers would strike you if you're going there alone. Notorious for that. And so, amazing again how accurate everything is. It's what we would expect, but it's there. And it says that all of a sudden, it says he was attacked by robbers. He's going there. They left him. They beat him. They rob him. They mug him. And they leave him there half dead. Verse 31. And by chance a certain priest was going down by that road. And when he saw him, he passed on the other side. Jericho, again, historically amazing. Jericho was a city of priests and Levites. So here he comes down. And he sees them. Now, the priests here are not priests in the way that you grew up. Many of you grew up if you were Catholic. These are the Kohanim. These are the sons of Aaron. They're the ones who were going to the temple, who were ministering in the temple. When I was growing up, and many of you know that I'm of that house, my father told me the Kohanim that we're not supposed to touch, not supposed to go into a cemetery because they're supposed to have nothing to do with anything dead, can't be defiled. Not that we were going to do that, but he said that's what it said. The priest was supposed to keep himself pure. So he sees a man who's half dead. He's dressed probably in holy garments, and he's looking at this world that has nothing to do with him. Probably he sees it as the underworld, violence, death. The man is probably defiled anyway. The whole site is unclean. He just came maybe from worshiping the Lord, because he came from Jerusalem, came from the holy place, the temple courts, clothed in white. And here he comes and sees this man, this thing he doesn't want to see. He's got to get on with things. He's got things to do for the Lord. So he's got holy things to do, probably at Jericho, because that's where the priests are. He doesn't want to touch it, doesn't want to deal with it. So he goes on the other side and keeps walking. Then comes the next one. Verse 32. Likewise, a Levite also, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. The Levite, when he saw him, passed by. Now you had the priests, then you had the Levites. The Levites, priests were here, the Levites were helping them. Levites was the whole tribe. The priests they were all from the tribe of Levi, but those from the tribe who weren't priests or Kohanim, they were simply called the Levites. They were not the priests. They didn't have the same thing, but they would help the priests in the temple of God. So they are also ministers. They could go into the courts, up to the courts of the Levites, but not beyond that court. The priests could go farther. So here they are, the helpers, serving God, ministering. And they came and he looked, passed by in the same way. He thought, well, similar. I'm a minister. I have things to do. I have to get on my way. I have to be about God's work here. I don't have time for this. This person's probably an unholy person anyway. Okay, next verse. But a certain Samaritan who was on a journey. See, he's not a priest, not a Levite, so it's not that he's doing the same thing, but he's on a journey. Came upon him. When he saw him, he felt compassion. Now, you got to have the background here. Because this is the whole point that he's making. Samaritan, what does that mean? Samaria, from Samaria. What is that all about? Remember, in the days of the kingdoms of Israel, the kingdom split in two. South Judah, North Israel. Israel on the north was also called Samaria, Shomrin, from the place there called, from the city called Samaria. So what happened was judgment fell first on the north. So they're wiped out. They're taken away while Judah is just watching. I mean, they went totally off. They went into all sorts of idolatry. They're taken away. And so as they're taken away by the Assyrians, they destroy everything. They bring in other people from other nations to totally mix it up so that there won't be a revolt. They try to mix everything up. So they bring in these pagans into Samaria. They mix with the survivors, and they are half, quote, Jewish or half is Israeli, and they're half Gentile in some way. So they become the Samaritans. So the Samaritans they also worship God, but they were, as they saw it, but they worshipped on their own mountain, not Jerusalem. So we have our own Jerusalem, Mount Gerizim. I told you about that. That's where I was. Mount Gerizim, that was their New Jerusalem. And so they had things, but it wasn't right. It was off. It was a heresy off. But they actually, to this day, if you go there, they actually have sacrifices to this day. On Passover, they offer up lambs. I saw the place where they did it. And so they are looked upon by the Jewish people as half-breeds, religious heretics, devils in some ways. So Messiah chooses this one to bring into his parable. The most unneighborly one. The person said, "Who's my neighbor?" And so he turns it all around. Samaritans didn't have it right. They didn't have theology right. They didn't have it. And yet Messiah is using this one to speak about a righteous person here. It's a rebuke to all the Pharisees and all the priests. It's a rebuke to all the believers today who pride themselves on having every doctrine right and having none of God's love, or judging every other ministry and every other believer. In the name of truth, they have the letter, yet light years removed from the heart of God. This is the heart of God. God could have corrected and said, "Hey, this is a Samaritan. He's got all these things wrong." Didn't say a word about it. I mean, that's important, but that's not what it's about. He says this man more had the heart of God than the other ones, who might have had their theology right, but didn't have God right. Theology is important, but if you don't have the Spirit, if you don't have the compassion, if you don't have the heart of God, it can be deadly.
To find out how you can receive more of Jonathan's teachings, to receive special free gifts, or get in touch, go to hopeoftheworld.org or call toll-free 1-800-YESHUA-1. That's hopeoftheworld.org or call 1-800-YESHUA-1. That's 1-800-937-4821. You can also get more at Jonathan Cahn's Facebook page or write us direct at Hope of the World, Box 1111, Lodi, New Jersey 07644, USA.